Welcome back to Queen's Mindset. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Here with me tonight, I have Shauntelle Best, and she has a dynamic story. I am telling you. But before we get into it, guys, I want you to do me one small favor, and that's to go right ahead and hit that button below and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you are always kept in the loop of everything that is happening. And also like, comment, and share. All right. So over to you now, Chantal. Welcome to Quiz Mindset. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm fine, thanks, and I hope that you're doing well.
Yes, indeed. It's indeed a privilege to have you here with us. Before we get into it, can you tell us a bit about who Chantal is?
Okay. So Chantal is a wife. Chantal is a mother of two beautiful children. I have a son and I have a daughter. I am an author. I am a singer. I am the chief leader of New Birth of a Solid Deliverance Ministries International. I'm a very big advocate against social injustices. Um, I consider myself to be a love ambassador. I'm very big on love. I believe in forgiveness, and I am very, very big on charity. And that's me in a nutshell. I love to cook. I'm not a chef, but I love to cook. I'm very shy, very, very shy. I'm bolder behind the screen. I'm actually very shy in person. And that's me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow, wow. All right. So I know that I heard somewhere that you wrote a book. What's the name of the book that you wrote?
Yes, my book is called Breaking Free, My Struggle with Beauty, and it pretty much talks about my struggle with beauty. In the book, beauty is personified as if she were a person. I'm also on the verge of writing another book called The Wounds of a Shepherd.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to read that book called Wounds of the Shadow. That sounds really interesting. So before we go into it, well, as we're diving into your story, we have to ask. I know everyone is sitting there wondering, you know, what happened here. So were you born with a facial disfigurement?
Yes, please. I was born with a hair lip and cleft palate. Um, and I was also born with a spinal deformity.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. So how was that for you? After me coming out as a kid, I'm assuming, when you're young, you're not aware of anything like that because I mean, you're a kid, so you're thinking, okay, this me, whatever. But then when you interact with people, how they react to that. How was that for you?
Well, for me, from a child, I was very aware. Because everywhere that you go, people would make you aware. You know, their comments, their laughter, the pointing of the finger. It didn't take long for me to realize that I was different from everybody else. That I looked different from everybody else, and that was even in the school environment. It was like that on the bus, and it wasn't just with children, but equally with adults as well. So everywhere I turned, I drew attention in every atmosphere, in every environment. So it didn't take long for me to realize that I was very different from everybody else, and it was difficult. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah, different. Yeah. Okay, so then, okay, so going to school and stuff, how was that for you in terms of things that were people always kind to you? What are some of the things that people would say when they see you?
I had like one or two persons that were kind, but the vast majority of students were very mean, and that is from primary right up to secondary school. Um, I was called every possible nickname that you could think of that attribute to my facial deformity. I was called Face, I was called Scarface, I was called ugly, bend nose, split nose, you name it. So it was difficult. I didn't have a lot of friends. I spent a lot of my, especially in primary school, I spent a lot of my time lunchtime in classes sitting down, alone. I had there are very few moments that I can recall where I ran around on the classroom with friends and laughing, that kind of thing. My school time was very painful. It wasn't a very jovial one.
Wow. Okay, so how did you deal with that? What are some of the things that you did to, say, get yourself through what was happening?
Okay, so one thing that I did was I started writing new songs from very young. I because for the most part I wanted to learn to write because like it's painful. And when I took the film, they would put me on a high, for lack of putting it a better way, and I wouldn't have to deal with the reality of my situation. And of course, eventually that became a habit because that high only lasts for a time. So when it lifts and the pain comes back or the reality becomes more than I can bear, then I will take pills again. So I am here only by the grace of a sovereign God.
Wow. 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 So, okay. So I know you said you used to take the pills and so on. In taking those pills, was it yes, you wanted to numb the pain and everything that you were feeling at that time, but was it also did you attempt to commit suicide in doing that too as well?
Yeah, yes, I really wanted to die. It was more about dying than it was about numbing the pain. Because in my mind, if I'm dead, I feel no pain. I really wanted to die because I didn't feel love. I didn't feel accepted. I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt that something was seriously wrong with me. There's a saying that I've known six and small may break my bones, but words never hurt me. The person that wrote that was very wrong. Very, 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 very wrong. Um, Physical wounds will heal way faster than emotional wounds, especially those that come at the result of verbal abuse. And that was what I suffered a lot of. It was extremely difficult, even with my mom and I. We're good now. God has repaired our relationship, but over time, it was a lot. It was a lot. I always felt very different from my siblings because I'm the only one in my family with the patient with pharmacy. So I always felt like I was being treated differently because of the way I look. Maybe it was the enemy messing with my mind. Maybe it was that I was actually treated differently because my mom as well, she had me at a very young age. And so I know better now. Now I know that it was a learning experience for her as well, and that it was a difficult experience for her as well. But at that time, I didn't see it that.
Wow, wow. So what was your mom's reaction to, in terms of everything you were going through? Was she aware of some of the things that people were saying towards you?
Yeah, my mom would always. You couldn't trouble me. She would always come to my defense. But at the same time, the insults were coming so random. Eventually, you get tired of the complaining all the time. And, she was just saying, it is what it is. All they gonna like you, all they gonna hate you. So basically, I had to learn to adapt. I had to learn to deal with it. If it were a case where a person was insulting me to the point where it was going to get physical, well then for sure, she would step in. But it wasn't every insult that you go, oh mommy, well this body tell me this and this body tell me that. It wasn't every time that she would be able to run and deal with that because that was my reality every day. So I had to learn how to just live with it, how to cry it out and get up the next day and live it all over again. And I imagine that it was hard for her too because the insults weren't only coming at me, but whenever somebody had something to tell her or somebody was at it, you could bet that the first thing that they would choose to tell her is about her ugly dog.
Wow, 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 wow. And what about your dad? Was he there too as well?
No, no, he was not. I did not grow up with my father. And to be honest with you, I spent a lot of years angry about with my mom for a lot of things. But as God has matured me, I love her and I thank God for her because even though it was difficult for her, she didn't do what he did. He left my mom to figure it out on her own. And he wasn't very nice in the things that he said. Um, so here's this young woman. My mom had me at 16 years old. Um, Young woman got pregnant at such a young age. And then, if that is not embarrassing enough, here comes this baby with all of these issues that she has to be back and forth with at the hospital non-stop with no family, with no support from the man who put his child there. So my father was not a part of my life. I was angry at him for many years. I'm not angry anymore because it is what it is. Um, but I think that there are lots of things in my life that I would not have suffered had he been a part of my life. But at the same time, because of where I am in God now, I am not bitter, I am not angry because God used those things for his glory. He used those things to pretty much create the woman that I am today. And so I am thankful for that.
That's wow, wow. Well, that had to be a lot. I'm sure that with that, it made you, it affected your self-esteem. It affected the way how you view yourself because, like you said, you felt as though like nobody loved me, nobody would ever love me. So with that happening,
Yeah.
tell me about how that stemmed into your type of relationships. You've passed school now, you're going into the realm of relationships, actually going into a relationship with someone else. Tell me how that affected that for you.
It affected my relationship. You're talking about with my father, right? You're talking about not having my father around.
Yeah,
Well,
not
right. It affected my relationship in that I was looking for acceptance. I was looking for a man that would love me, that would see me as beautiful, and because that was what was most important to me, fundamental things that I should have paid attention to with these men, I didn't pay attention to. And it resulted in me getting my heart broken time and time again. But I kept looking, any man that was saying, well, you look good, even if it was just for him to get what he wanted, I didn't see it as that at that time because I was broken, I was damaged. And here's a man telling me that I'm beautiful, telling me that I look good. But I wasn't mature enough to realize that this man had ulterior motives, that this man really didn't mean anything that he would say, but for a moment it was filling a void. It was filling a hole that was there because not having my father around to reaffirm certain things in my mind, it damaged me. I never loved myself. I had no self confidence, no self esteem, no self worth, for many years, for many, 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 many years. And I would not say to you that I have life. I am still fighting against those spirits. I'm not where I used to be, but I am not where I need to be either. And that's because there was no father in place, to help my mother in nurturing me and helping me to see beauty in myself. So for me, you would think that I would learn a lesson from each man that hurt me. I didn't. It took a while because in my mind I'm thinking that if my father can leave me, why should I be angry at other men for doing it? So I made a lot of bad decisions. I got involved in a lot of bad relationships because I was looking for a father's love. And it's interesting that you would ask that question because I'm currently in a season where the Lord is dealing with me, um, trying to heal me from the fact that my father was absent because the reality is no other person can love me like my father. He was not there. He didn't do it. I have to live with that. I have to heal from that. But I can't continue going through life expecting other men to love me on behalf of my father. but I am currently um, going through the process of deliverance and healing from that because it's not something that you heal from like that. Sometimes it can take a lifetime.
Yeah. You're that absolutely correct. Absolutely. I see so many women who struggle with that, there's no age limit for it. Sometimes they're far gone in their 50s or they even in their 20s. It doesn't matter. It's always that, that underlying thing that they may think that, it doesn't bother me, but when you really look back, you realize, oh, wow, this thing really impacted me significantly. When you look through the patterns of relationships and so on, it's evident that obviously affected them. So my other question
Yeah.
for you was my other question for you is, coming out of that relationship, I know you got your first marriage. Tell us about your first marriage and why that was not a successful one.
My first marriage, when I met that young man, I wasn't really interested in a relationship because I had just found out that the relationship I was in before, the guy was cheating on me with number two or three women from other nationalities. And I was adamant that I wasn't interested in this relationship with the gentleman because outside of that I've been raped multiple times. And so I had just had it. I was about it. And he kept pursuing, he kept pushing. And I thought that he was genuine. But when he asked me to marry him, I was on top of the moon. I remember we went to my mom and she said, "You sure? This marriage thing ain't easy. You better take your time with this thing." And we young people think that we know it all. When we want what we want, even though mommy's speaking, I want this and I got my right to this. And so I went ahead and we got married. And within months of our marriage, he started cheating on me with a lot of people. And I, you know, I tried to hold out. I tried to, and then I found myself going back to a relationship with the guy that I had a guy that I had before because I never wanted to be alone. But then my first husband said to me one day, he said, "You look good from your neck down." He literally told me that I look good from my neck down. And I said, "Well, if you feel that way, why did you marry me?" And he said, "Because the sex is good." I said, "But you already had me at a vulnerable place. I was already having sex with you. I had already passed that point with you. You were already getting what you wanted. Why take me to an altar in front of family and friends and marry me and then say to me that I look good from my neck down?" And that was really brought down the breakdown of my marriage came because I couldn't stay married to someone who told me that I look good from my neck down. And then that people were insulting him, he was ashamed of who his wife is, and then he still expected me to be intimate with him and stuff like that. And I couldn't do it. And when he realized that I couldn't do that, he left. With all that he said to me, I still didn't leave the marriage. He left me
Wow.
because I was so broken that any company was good company for me instead of being alone. But even though this man, is in my home and he's telling me these things, at least I am not alone. I have somebody in the home with me. But then it came to a point where I knew there had to be something better. There had to be something more. That God could not create me and then not create someone with a heart to love me. I chose to believe that somewhere in the world that there is a man that God created with a heart to love me. And I was right.
Wow, wow, that's a lot. So you said just now, you were raped. Was it at a younger age?
Yes, from a young, yes, it began at a young age. Well, the rape, I was sexually abused from a young age, and it escalated over time with each partner. There were certain partners that I had that when they were very forceful, they were very forceful, and When it came to a point where I began to take a stand for myself, then they turned to rape. And damages, rape can scar you for the rest of your life. It's not an easy thing. And especially with someone who was dealing with so many other emotional and psychological issues. Rape added to that was not a very good thing. So I was raped from a very young age.
Wow, wow, that's a lot. How were you able to overcome that? Because like you said just now, is something that can scar you for life. How were you able to get over that?
Um, how was I able to get over? I would have to say that there was a situation that had occurred in my family. I won't go into details what that situation. It was very serious, and it was something that required me to be in prayer. And it was at that moment that God shifted me because I was going to church, but I wasn't going to Christ. I was sitting in the house of God singing, but I did not have an encounter yet with God. And after this situation occurred, I heard the Lord speak clearly for the first time. He said, "The prayers of the righteous availeth much." And I knew that I had to get to a place of righteousness. It was in that turn point that I began to get into my word and that I began to learn what God said concerning me. And the more I began to dive into God, and the more God began to show me his heart concerning me, I began to heal from these little things because for all these years I thought the problem was me. I thought I was the issue because in all this pain I was the common denominator. But then when I began to learn more about God and about the spirit realm and about how the devil can operate and his tactics and strategies, I began to realize that I have a purpose, a kingdom purpose. I began to realize that the girl who thought that she was nobody for so many years was actually somebody. And that all these things that were being done to me was an attempt not just to kill off who I was in the natural, but more to kill who I was in the spirit, to stop me from coming to my fullest potential. So I trained myself over time not to see personalities, but to see principalities.
Wow, that's really deep because you're absolutely correct. That's exactly how it works. I actually was going to ask my next question for you was going to say, what led you back to Christ, but you covered that there just now by talking about the incident that occurred that then led you to have that encounter with God. So when did you meet your now husband?
Right. Well, I met my husband when that incident occurred. Um, the Lord was just transitioning. Well, because of that incident, I transitioned from one church to another. Um, because I didn't feel like I felt like my season was up, and the church that I transitioned to was an apostolic church, and that is where I began my training in the pastoral, and it was there that I met my husband. But when I met him in December of 2008, and then he disappeared. He threw all of these nice words at me, and then he disappeared. And then I remember that my apostle at the time, he he said, "I want you to call Adrian and see if you can invite him back out to church." I was like, "Me?" And he said, "Yes." And I called, and this handsome dude that he is, very smooth with his words. I called to invite him back to church, which I did. I didn't get him to come back to church, but that was the beginning of what would be the best years of my life.
Wow, wow, that's good.
And to
So,
prove it,
mhm.
he is the best by name and by nature.
Wow. Wow. So is he the father of your two children, or was that from your other
Yes,
marriage?
yes, he's the father of my two children. We got married in 2010, and my son was born on December 2011. Then I had our daughter on March of 2014. So both of my kids are Haitian. So we've been together. Last month was 12 years we've been together, and this year we celebrate 11 years in marriage.
Wow.
While my first marriage only lasted 2 years.
2 years. Wow. Wow. You mean God really does work in mysterious ways, you know? Wow.
The
So how then how have you used this experience to impact others? Now, I know you've written your book, you're in the process of finishing up your second book. And is there any other like types of ministries or any other thing that you do to use what you've been through to help other persons who may be going through a similar situation as well?
Okay, so I have right big Facebook ministry. A few years ago, I was just sitting down playing with my cell phone, and I said, let me try doing a video. And I did a video talking about discrimination and speaking about how persons like myself with visible deformities feel when people laugh at something. And I posted this video to Facebook, and that was those videos went viral, and to this day, I have over 12,000 and some people following me on Facebook. So every day I am on Facebook encouraging persons. I counsel people from all around the world. Um, and I started last year my own talk show program called Transparency, the True segment. And I use that forum to share a lot of my life is an open book, to use my life experiences to the best of my ability to help as many people as I can. It's been going very well. I took a break in March to deal with some personal issues and some medical stuff that I have to get done. Um, but it has helped a lot of people, and it's helped me because putting myself out there like that pretty much made me accountable to myself, to do better, to push harder, to grow more, to overcome more, and not to become complacent or to think that because I have reached this far that I have arrived. So I am constantly pursuing greater and trying to become every day I get up, trying to become a better version of myself because I have gone from the girl who had no friends to the girl who now inspires people all around the world. I forgot to mention that when my first husband left me, I wrote a song called I Found Him, and I never released that song until last year. And it did very well. So I have my first single that I released in June last year called I Found Him, and that song was birthed out of pain that I would have endured after my first marriage ended.
Wow, yes, I heard that song and that sounds fire. I absolutely love it.
Thank
Definitely.
you. So I'm working now on I have another single that I am hoping to release very soon called The Cleaning Me. So I'm just taking I haven't arrived. I still have my days when I get up and I look in the mirror and I ask God some questions. I still have my days where I struggle to love myself, to accept myself. Because the enemy will always present you with what you know, you know. So every day is not I don't get up every day as a strong woman, but I take lessons out of every day. And I try to use um everything that I feel, everything that I've experienced, every lesson that I've learned to encourage and to build others. And I feel very, very, very happy with where I'm at now in my life. And looking back, every time somebody messages me and tells me how I help them, how, they feel like they should go out there and conquer the world because if Chantal Best is doing it, if she can do it, so can I. Truth be told, it was all worth it. Every heartbreak, every rape experience, every failed friendship, every single part of it was all worth it because you can't take people on a journey that you've never been on. And so now I feel like I am some earth moving to someone. So it was all worth
Yeah. Definitely, definitely. So I like what you said about you mean you're still it's a process for you. So in going through that process, at any time, did you ever blame your parents for your condition?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Of course. I blame my mom. I blame my father. And then you would hear a lot of people would talk like this because your mom used to do this or your father used to do that. People would try to put all kinds of things in your head. I blamed them for a long time until I went to Florida in 2005 to have any attempt to have facial reconstructive surgery done. There was a lady that I met, wonderful lady. Her name is Marjorie Davidson, very wonderful Barbadian living in Florida, and she did all she could to help me get to Florida in the hopes of having facial reconstructive surgery done. I went to the Jackson Memorial Foundation, and there was a doctor there, Dr. Sala. He was more than willing to do these surgeries. But then when they looked over my hospital records and they examined me, they realized that they would have to do and redo a lot of what was already extensive surgery that have to be done. And I was for a lot of money. I did it not and survive it long because I have a lot of surgeries done here already. Um, but then I went to see the doctor that morning. Before I left, I said to God, if it is your will for me to have this surgery done, then make it possible. If it is not your will, then block it. Because I don't want to have get up tomorrow looking at Kamisha and then I am no longer Shauntelle. It changes my personality, my character. And when the doctor said what he said to me, I went back to my apartment at night angry. And the Lord said to me that your face is your ministry. He said, I created you with that on purpose. Because every time you speak, it will draw a particular crowd. Every time you sing, people will stand in awe at what I have done in and through you. He said, your faith is your ministry. And it was at that moment that I recognized that it wasn't anything my mother did, it wasn't anything my father did, but that this is the divine will of God.
Wow, that is so powerful. That is wow, that is very powerful.
Thank
Wow.
you.
I love what you said that what I love what you said with your face being your ministry. And I do believe that that's the case because look how it's drawn me to you. So I mean he was God is never wrong.
Amen.
What advice would you give to women out there who are in a similar situation right now, in terms of how they view themselves? It could be a form of they can have challenges with facial deformity or anything that they may be going through, struggling with their identity. But there's so many things that people are struggling with. What would be your advice to someone who's in that space right now?
Okay. I will say first of all that life is happening. Whether we want to be a part of it or not, life is happening. And there's so many beautiful things that we can accomplish and we can do. But we can't do it if we are not confident of who we are, if we're not certain of who we are. And how do you know who you are? How do you find out who you are? How do you discover your identity? You go back to the manufacturing. You go back to God and you find out what God is saying about who you are. You find out why God has created you. And for me, I learned that I am not defined by my circumstances. I am not defined by my past. I am not defined by what another person says about me. I am first defined by who God says I am. And then the onus is on me to get up and show the world that a woman with a deformed nose and no perfect teeth can sing just as beautifully as the next person, can write, can dance, can do anything that the average person can do. So I learned that I don't get to be angry at people for not loving me when I don't love myself. I don't get to be angry at people for not accepting me when I can't even accept myself. And I also learned that people's perception of me will change when my perception perception of myself changed. When I started to wear makeup, when I started to dress nicer, when I started to feel fussy about me and be determined that, you know what, it is what it is. I'm just going to step out there and live my life because Halle Berry is one of the most beautiful women on earth. And there are people that don't like her, Whitney Houston, all of these people flawless, but there's somebody that still don't like me. So you can't please all. Whether you have everything intact or not, somebody's gonna have an issue with you. So you gotta love yourself. You gotta accept yourself. If you can change it, change it. And if you can't change it, own it. I decided to own it. And I decided, you know what? Makeup ain't meant for Felicia One. It ain't meant for the Halle Berrys and the Whitney Houston. Anybody can wear makeup. And I decided that I was gonna get up, dress up, show up, and just make life happen for me. The moment that I did that, I began to change people's perception of me because I began to look at myself from a whole different standpoint. So sometimes people treat you how you treat yourself. Sometimes people view you how you view yourself. And to change their opinion of you, you first have to change your opinion of yourself. And you'll be amazed to see how many people will be inspired by your strength, by your determination, by your push. You'll be amazed to see how many people who don't have flaws will draw strength from you, the one that have flaws that are still getting up and pushing past your limitations or what were supposed to be limitations and making life happen. I have people that message me that are inspired by me. And when you look at them, you can't see anything wrong with them. But on the inside, they're struggling. And they're looking at Shauntelle, who doesn't seem perfect, who doesn't have it all together, but who's getting up every day, and I'm still pushing. I wanted to do a photo shoot. I see everybody doing a photo shoot, and I decided, but I want to do a photo shoot for my birthday. I did it. I did it. Because the world is not going to put limitations on me. When God says that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And that was my encouragement to those who feel like they can't because they have a flaw. There are people with no hands who play piano, no hands who can draw very well. Why? Because they chose not to allow the world's perception of beauty and success to define who they are. And if they can do it, if I can do it, so can any of you.
Absolutely. 110% agree. Oh my gosh. Wow. What a conversation this was. I absolutely enjoyed talking to you, and I am definitely sure that our audience right now, they're probably on the edge of their seat, like, tell me more, tell me more. Oh, well, I definitely did.
And,
So, yes. So I
and
really
thank
want
you for coming.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you guys for viewing. Feel free if you have any questions or anything, place them in the chat box below. And also, if you want to reach out to Shauntelle as well, you can find her on Facebook. I'll let Shauntelle tell you exactly where to find the other groups and so on, so that if you guys want to reach out to her, that you can. So Shauntelle, go ahead and tell them where they can find you.
Okay, so I am on Facebook. Type in Shauntelle Best. I also have a page. You can type in Apostle Shauntelle Best, and you should find me. I'm not very hard to find on Instagram. I'm Shauntelle Best as well. Right, not very hard to find.
Correct. And I'm also going to list that up there for you guys so that you can see the correct spelling and everything, so that you can go right ahead
Yes,
and follow her and get that information.
I love you, boy. I love you too. It's you and I. It's me and you. And no matter what they say, I'ma love you every single day. Little bit. Coño.
but I'm so glad. I'm so glad that he was waiting for me. I found him in my worship. I found him in my praise. I found him in the most terrifying days. I found him in each breakthrough, and I found him in my tears. He was there in every valley, careful in my fears. It was there I found my power. It was there I learned my strength. In my faith I found my purpose. Over and over again, I found him in my worship. I found him in my praise. I found him in the most terrifying days. I found him in each breakthrough, and I found him in my tears. He was there in every valley, careful in my fears. It was there I found my power. It was there I learned my strength. In my faith I found my purpose. Over and over again. Over and over
So, in this 12-part series, you'll hear stories about a single mother dealing with a quadruple amputee. You'll hear the stories of the journey to purity. You'll hear the stories about brokenness that led to wholeness. You'll hear the stories about facing imperfections. You'll hear the stories of how prison led to purpose. You'll hear the stories about fertility issues and how that rendered them barren. You'll hear the stories about domestic violence. You'll hear the stories of how a miscarriage saved a life. You'll hear the stories about dealing with insecurities and finding your identity. You'll hear the story of how a headache led to a coma. You'll hear the stories about a fatal accident that almost cost a daughter her life. You'll hear the stories about dealing with suicide and a tumor.
So once again, guys, thanks again for joining us. And Shauntelle, it was definitely a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye.